My name is Blitzvogel. Welcome to Battlefield 1. I gotta hand it to DICE just off the bat. DICE has just blown it out of the park, or hit it out of the park, however you say it. Not only is Battlefield 1 just so fuckingly, amazingly good, except for a couple problems, I won't get into that, but just in generally, it's an amazingly well-made, well-polished, and absolutely optimized game. Holy crap, this is so well optimized. I'm very surprised my R9 270 runs it as well as it does. And just so you know from the get-go, this is a direct recording via OBS, Open Broadcasting System, if you're not familiar with it. So it is sucking up CPU cycles out of my machine in order to make this render, which is a full 1080p 60 FPS render, 10,000 kilobytes per second. So right now, we are running about 45 frames per second, and we are running in all high settings with SSAO, not HD or HBAO, and no anti-aliasing solution whatsoever. And I was extremely surprised at how well this ran with OBS running in the background, which is going to be more CPU bound than anything, but I was still just like, holy crap, how's this running as well as it is with a recorder in the background, a direct recorder on my Core i5 4690, but whatever. If it wasn't for OBS running in the background right now, I'd probably be getting about another 10 frames per second. So on this map, Argonne Forest, which is a beautiful map, I gotta hand it to DICE. This is an absolutely beautiful map. I can't stop saying absolutely, but it really is. I mean, you thought Star Wars Battlefront looks great. This looks awesome. It's not my favorite map though, but that's a whole nother story. So let's get into the graphics settings of what I'm running here, which, like I said, is pretty much all high, but you can see my field of view. I like to have it at 79. When it's super high, the sides just get too distorted and they sort of screw me up. I am running at 1080p, and the TV I'm running this on runs at 59.94 hertz, which is kind of odd, but it's just what the TV supports. Now, a very important thing that y'all need to know is if you're experiencing lag, mouse lag, while playing this game, chances are it's because you're running in DX12 mode. Put it in DX11 mode. It'll run so much smoother, so much faster, and the lag won't be there. When I fired the game up for the first time when it was available on Origin on Friday, I could not play for shit. I mean, the first game I played, I died 8 times and I couldn't shoot anybody because the lag was just that bad. The lag was real. So, put it into DX11 mode by just disabling DX12 here in the advanced graphics options, disable EA Origins overlay layer, and things should pick up quite a bit. Moving on, you can see here that I have the game running at high settings, no anti-aliasing, as well as SSAO as opposed to HBAO. With these settings on Argonne Forest, I hover around 60 FPS. It can go a little above, a little less, but it runs great, and for the most part, every other level runs from 50 to 60 FPS just fine. Now, I've changed it to Ultra here, and even with still OBS running in the background, a 60 FPS OBS, 10,000 kilobytes per second recording, it still runs really well. I didn't expect 30 frames per second. I was expecting something like 20. But that just goes to show how well optimized this game is, both graphics and CPU-wise. I gotta chalk it up to DICE. They did a really fantastic job making this run as well as it does on the myriad of hardware out there. So let's change things. Let's go from ultra settings and everything. As you can see here, I died twice in the process of changing this, but it's okay. Our point was not to do great. Our point was to show settings here as I'm running this. But moving down to low settings, the FPS picks up obviously quite a bit. It doesn't really go that much far north of 60, but that probably has more to do with the fact that we are running OBS in the background. It's sucking up CPU cycles, and, you know, Battlefield 1 here needs, you know, CPU cycles to run pretty well. But it's still surprising. Just, yo, this game plus OBS running really great. Now, the whole point of this video is to give you an idea of how well the R9 270 does run this game. And while this isn't, you know, a direct recording via, you know, a recording device, which would give you a much better picture of what the real performance would be, this does give you an idea of just how good this card does perform on this game, or really how well this game performs on this card, as well as the i5 4690K that I have in my system, and 16 gigabytes of RAM. The game does run off an HDD. I do have an SSD, but that's mostly for my operating system and a couple other games, not Battlefield 1. It runs perfectly fine off the hard drive. Of course, it just loads into RAM. It doesn't have to stream or anything, and it runs great. What's funny is even at low settings here, the game still looks really damn good. It really has helped that obviously DICE does not have to cater to previous gen consoles like they had to with Battlefield 4. Now Star Wars Battlefront really was kind of a preview of where things were going to go as far as graphics went for anything Frostbite. Frostbite 3 specifically, if I remember correctly. This is Frostbite 3. And it just looks absolutely amazing, even at low settings here. But, you know, you turn the settings up, especially the terrain and foliage, the settings that control those specific things, and the game looks absolutely amazing. I can do without the HBAO just perfectly fine, as well as the anti-aliasing. Because to me at 1080p, yes, I can see aliasing, but in a multiplayer game like this, unless I have like a GTX Titan XP or something extremely high-end, I'd rather have the frame rate than a cleanup of the image. The image is already fairly clean. The aliasing doesn't bother me that much. Now, I've played this game like hardcore in the past week since it's been available to me. So I already got my MG0815 available. I'm playing support class here. My only big gripe gameplay-wise is the fact that the MGs put out such little damage, which is really stupid when you consider that they run full-size rifle rounds in these games, which is just absolutely silly. But it puts out the same amount of power as the submachine gun, which is absolutely stupid. Even if the barrel is shorter and there's a little bit less chamber pressure, an MG firing an 8.8 Mauser or a 7.62 or a 30-06 round for the most is going to develop it's still going to produce about 90-95% of the same kind of stopping power as it would out of a much bigger bolt-action rifle. It's going to be really close. I think that's a rant I'll save for another day, because I can go forever and ever on it. But going back to the graphics, you know, like I said earlier, this is running on an AMD Radeon R9 270, which is based off the Pitcairn GPU from early 2012 when the 7000 series first dropped. So this is really a 4-year-old GPU running this game, and it runs great. I only have 2 gigabytes of video memory, and to be perfectly honest, I wasn't expecting this game to run at higher ultra settings as well as it does on only 2 gigabytes of VRAM on my R9 270. I'm pretty surprised that it's running as well as it does. Obviously, if we were to push the frame rates, or I'm sorry, not the frame rates, the resolution much higher, it's like 1440p or of course 4K, this R9 270 would not have enough video memory to handle those resolutions. It really wouldn't have the graphics horsepower to handle 4K especially. 1440p we can make work by reducing some settings. Even at high settings here are probably not that difficult at 1440p on the R9 270. The frame rates would definitely be a lot lower than they are now when I normally run high settings, no AA with SSAO at 1080p. A lot of maps, like I said, it's around 50 to 60 frames per second. Runs really smooth, runs really nice, and it feels absolutely great. Of course, disable DirectX 12. It is a NVIDIA AMD agnostic issue. It doesn't care what you have. It just creates really bad control lag, and just play it in DX11 mode. You're not really missing out on anything running in DX11 mode as opposed to DX12. Yeah, maybe the frame rate's technically higher in DX12, perhaps, but if your control lag is so bad as it is, or as it was in my case, just stick with DX11. It's perfectly fine, looks great, runs great. There's no reason to run DX12 mode. Now, one thing I'm sort of planning to do, I need to take care of it maybe tonight, since downloading this game does take a lot of space and takes a long time, at least on our internet connection, which we're only about 16 megabits of download speed, which really translates to about 2 megabytes per second, which is decent for the United States, but I mean, for the rest of the world, it's not that fast at all. But it works for multiplayer gaming. But as far as downloading goes, I want to download this to my wife's computer, which has an i3-2120 and a 1 gigabyte Radeon 7750. I want to see if I can force this game to work on that 7750 with only 1 gigabyte of video memory. I have a feeling I'm going to be able to. Possibly. While the Radeon 7750 only features about 900 gigaflops of graphics compute, which is about 2/5 of what this R9 270 is capable of, I bet it has enough GPU horsepower to run this game at 720p all low settings, and probably with some stuff enabled to medium. It does run Battlefield 4 perfectly fine at 1080p, mostly medium settings. So I have a feeling it could probably run this at low settings, 720p, just perfectly fine. The problem, of course, is going to be that 1 GB video memory limit. This game does require, quote-unquote, 2 GB, so we will see if it detects video memory, or the amount of video memory available on startup, when the game starts up, and whether or not it'll be like, oh hey, you only got 1 GB of video memory, so we're not going to do fuck all for you. It'll be interesting to see if I can get that to work. And if it doesn't work initially, I wonder if I could mess with the config file to make it work for us. So we're coming to the end of the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope this gives you an idea of how maybe your R9 270 will run this game. Chances are it's going to be really similar. Make sure to give a like to the video, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more tech videos and more gameplay videos from yours truly. My name is Blitzvogel. Thank you guys for watching.